amazing artists. Welcome to another Art with me, Miss Taub. Can you believe that it's already May? Man, this year has been really tough, but I'm happy to know that it is still flying by. You have two assignments for May. For the first 2 weeks in May, we are going to be using recycled materials to create something called a form. And what a form is it's kind of like a shape except this shape is popping out or 3D. So, if you had a square, the 3D or form version of a square would be a cube. Have you ever seen a cube at your house? Maybe like dice or Rubik's Cube? The form is actually fat or 3D or popping out. And what being 3D means is it has 3 dimensions: length, height, and width. And all that means is that it's a real object and it's popping out. So we're going to be creating our own 3D artwork by making sculptures. A sculpture is a 3D work of art that you can see all the way around. So I like to say that shapes are flat, but a form is fat. That's a good way that you can remember the difference between forms and shapes. Now, for your sculpture assignment this week and next week, I would like for you to go on a hunt around your house for recycled materials. I know that Earth Day just passed, so you should all know that recycled materials are those materials that we throw away, but we then reuse, right? So it seems like we're throwing it away because we're putting it in that blue box, but actually it's going to a facility where they can make things out of our plastic bottles or out of our paper. A couple of recycling materials you might know are glass bottles, plastic bottles, cardboard, paper, aluminum cans, anything that you can find around your house that you think you can turn into your artwork. Now, before you get to making that sculpture, I want to tell you what our inspiration is this week. I know that with Miss Monahan for Library, you guys have been learning all about fairy tales and tall tales. I want you to take your favorite character, your favorite place or object from your tall tale or your fairy tale and use it as inspiration for your artwork. Your sculpture can be almost anything as long as it comes as inspiration from a story that you read. There are tons of ways to make recycled art, and I'm going to show you a couple ways that I like to make recycled art. But again, you're the artist and you can create your sculpture however you like, as long as you're using your tall tale or your fairy tale as inspiration. Let's get started on creating our amazing story-inspired recycled sculptures.
For my sculpture, I decided I wanted to do Rapunzel's tower. I had a few plastic containers and this cereal box and an old sponge laying around, and also this brown paper. After deciding which plastic container I would use for my tower, I took the brown paper and I cut it into a strip that was just about the size of my plastic container. What I'm going to use this brown paper for is to create a brick texture on top. So I cut up my old sponge, I got some paint, and I actually practiced what color I was going to do because I wasn't sure if I wanted this copper color or the gray color. So I practiced on a different piece of paper, and I decided that I like them both. So what I ended up doing is mixing them together to create a brick pattern on top of my brown paper. Once I filled up my page and sponge painted the whole thing to look like brick, I put it off to the side and let it dry. While that was drying, I decided it was time to create the roof of my tower. This part was a little tricky because I decided that I wanted to create a form called a triangular prism, which looks like the pyramids of Egypt, if you've ever seen those. And in order to do that, I had to create a perfect triangle and then use it like a stencil and trace it a few times for the different sides of my pyramid. Now, after I started putting it together, I realized that this wasn't exactly what I was going for. And sometimes that happens in art, especially when you're working on something that you're not sure what the end result is supposed to look like. You might have like an idea in your head, but it didn't fit on top of my plastic container like I wanted it to. So I added another piece and I was still unhappy with it. So I ended up scrapping that idea and taking this cereal box and rolling it or curving it into a different form shape called a cone. A cone is related to a triangle, just like a cube is related to a square. I actually taped mine in place and then I trimmed the edge so that it was nice and small but still fit perfectly on top of my plastic container. Once I was happy with my cone shaped and I taped it in place, I took my black magic marker and I started to add some scalloped lines. And you know, a scalloped line is just an upside down bumpy line to add the shingles of my roof. When I filled up my cone with the shingles, my paint was pretty much dry, so I wrapped up my plastic container in the paper and taped it down so it would stay in place. Now, once this was finished, I could have been done. It looked like a tower, but you know me, I love to add details. So I decided that I was going to add some details at the bottom of my tower using this green strip of paper. I took my green strip of paper and I cut a lot of teeny tiny cuts, but I didn't cut all the way through so that it create a fringe. Fringe is a way that you can manipulate the paper or change it so that it kind of looks like real grass. Real grass means that it would be at the base of the tower, so that's exactly where I taped it all around the edge of my tower. Then I decided that I wanted to create a window for Rapunzel to look out of. And I used this silver paper, but I didn't like it. It was too shiny and it didn't look like the window of a tower would look. So I found a black scrap of paper and I cut it to the same shape, that semicircle shape, and I glued it on once I was happy with its placement. Now I could be done, right? But you know me, I love adding details. So, because this tower didn't have a rainbow in it, I grabbed some rainbow strips of paper and this tape and I created a rainbow flag. Once I taped these strips of paper together, I cut it in the shape of a rectangle to make it look like a flag, and I curled the edge to tape to a few toothpicks that I then put together and stuck at the tippy top of my tower. Now, I know this does take a little bit of extra time, but this little detail made it look like an artwork that I would create. And I cannot wait to see how you guys use your favorite stories or fairy tales to inspire your recycled sculpture. Have so much fun with this, and I will see you soon.